Good morning and welcome to SpaceX and Axiom Space's splashdown coverage of AX-4, the fourth crewed mission to the International Space Station by Axiom Space. I'm Jesse Anderson, a senior production engineering manager here at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California.
And I'm John Rackham with the Portable Life Support Systems team at Axiom Space based in Houston, Texas. Well, with over 20 days in space, our crew spent just over 18 days aboard the International Space Station. And while on board, they worked over 60 science-related research activities and participated in more than 20 outreach events, all of this totaling more than 288 orbits, covering 7.6 million miles. And now we are here in the final phase of their journey home. So over the next hour, we will follow the return of Commander Peggy Whitson, Shubhanshu Shukla, Sławomir Znański-Wiśniewski, and Tibor Kapu as they splash down off the coast of California and bring the operational phases of the AX-4 mission to a close.
Over the last 22 and a half hours, Dragon has been moving into position for reentry with downhill phasing burns, which are firings of the recovery vessel there. And once the spacecraft is nestled into the nest, it'll translate to a deck that meets the height of where the hatch on the Dragon spacecraft is. That'll enable the crew to egress or exit the spacecraft easily onto a platform in the recovery vessel.
And talking about the crew, Jesse, we've mentioned this idea of this kind of understanding the aspects of spaceflight, as mentioned earlier, being able to do STEM engagement on the mission, but also being able to spend time and honestly, your crew commander being somebody like Peggy Whitson. For Shooks and Swav and Tibor to be able to take that knowledge back to their respective space agencies and to their countries is a huge step forward for what you just mentioned earlier about making sure that that human spaceflight as a team sport continues for everybody to understand what's going on, because now Shooks and Swav and Tibor have a very important distinction, and they now have a very unique perspective on what it takes for a human spaceflight mission to occur. as first-time astronauts, they're going to take back all that knowledge from their time on the International Space Station and be able to make huge impacts with their space agencies and their countries.
Yeah, I'm sure they learned a lot from Peggy Whitson, but also the other crew members that are currently on board the International Space Station. They got to interact with so many different people with diverse skills.
Exactly.
And 18 days is quite a long time in space.
It is.
So it's a good amount of time. I believe this is the longest duration for an Axiom space mission so far.
That's right. We heard a lot of those kind of sentiments shared between the AX-4 crew and the Expedition 73 crew currently on the International Space Station during their farewell ceremony, during their undocking last night. It really kind of underscored the aspect of once you're up there, once that hatch is open, it's all one team. Mm-hmm. It is. Like we keep saying it's a team sport, but once they were in there integrating with the Expedition 73 crew, that AX-4 crew was learning so much more. And it was highlighted in everything that they were able to execute, right? We mentioned earlier over 60 research projects, over 20 STEM engagements, outreach events. Over 18 days, that's an incredible amount of time packed into their timeline, just coupled with sleeping and being there, but also like the aspects that they're not timeline, but engaging with the crew, sharing cultural touch points, understanding each other, getting to learn each other. And they did have the benefit of getting to meet this Expedition 73 crew before their flight. So by the time they were opening that hatch, they kind of knew each other. And I think it's an incredible aspect of this mission for sure.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder what their comms were. I'll meet you in space.
Exactly right. I wish I had the ability to say that. That'd be so cool.
One day when we're all able to fly in space.
All right, sounds good. I'll see you in space then.
See you in space, John. Looks like we're getting closer. They are pulling the spacecraft towards the recovery vessel. Looks like we're rigged up, and you can see the hydraulic lift moving forward and down. And then it will begin to lift the spacecraft out of the water and again into that Dragon nest that you see there on the recovery vessel. think one of my favorite parts is the recovery crew that's on the spacecraft gets to jump into the ocean
That's right.
when
That's
they're
right.
done.
Yeah.
And it's nighttime in the Pacific, so it might be a little cold,
We'll be a little chilly.
but definitely a unique part of the job.
Exactly right. And you can see all the support crew. There was just a fast boat on the screen that made its way off screen there, but you can see the number of support crew that's kind of going into supporting an operation like this. You know, it may look like it's not happening very fast, but there are a lot of steps that each of these crew members are responsible for ensuring that the Dragon spacecraft is pulled into that nest safely but smoothly, and they're working towards that now. There he goes.
Love that. Despite the freezing temperatures, it looks fun.
And he got out of the water pretty fast, so I think you're right about that.
All right. Looks like lift is about to begin.
Those of you just tuning in, the AX4 crew splashed down off the coast of Southern California a little under 30 minutes ago. And we are now in the
Dragon SpaceX. Rigging is complete. Stand by for capsule lift.
Dragon copies.
Dragon SpaceX, capsule lift in progress, brace.
good verbal confirmations there and visual confirmations that we're getting a successful lift.
Dragon copies.
And again, those comms, crew can't see what's happening outside of the spacecraft, so letting the crew know what's happening so they understand, you know, the vehicle moving,
Exactly.
what those different feelings are with the spacecraft moving around.
Trying to give crew some level of situational awareness of where they are and where they're going next. So Dragon will remain in the nest during the crew extraction and for the journey back into port. The spacecraft is currently was just lifted, as you saw, and set on the nest. And from here, it'll be centered and oriented. And then from there, Dragon will be translated into the hangar underneath the helipad aboard the ship so that we can then open the hatch. And once open, a SpaceX medical doctor will be the first one in to check on the crew to see if they are ready to egress out of the vehicle. And as we noted earlier, Axiom medical teams are also on the recovery vessel working in tandem with SpaceX staff to assess and assist the crew.
The astronauts will egress, or what we call exit, from Dragon's side hatch, pending spacecraft orientation in the water. Before opening the hatch, the spacecraft's cabin pressure must be equalized with the outside environment. Now, once the hatch is opened, that will be the Axiom 4 crew's first breath of fresh air since boarding Falcon 9 at the start of their mission on June 25th.
And that will be an exciting moment for the crew, I know. But for the crew and also for the ground crews, getting that first confirmation of your crew exiting the spacecraft, getting good medical checks, and then coming out and giving a thumbs up is something everybody wants to be able to see, and we'll be able to see it soon.
Yeah. And it looks like the spacecraft is nestled into the nest.
Dragon SpaceX, welcome aboard the recovery ship. Apology for the delayed call earlier. We are still working to transition the forward link. Recovery personnel are completing their final checks, and I will let you know when we are ready for translation across the deck to the egress platform.
Now, they are de-rigging the spacecraft, but they're also doing some final sniff or leak checks and then covering the thruster locations prior to opening that hatch. Let's just make sure that the vehicle is more than safe for the crew members to exit the vehicle. Again, if you're just now joining us, the Dragon spacecraft has been lifted onto the recovery vessel Shannon. Now the recovery crew is safing the vehicle. They're putting some covers on the thrusters of the vehicle just to ensure, now that the spacecraft is no longer in operation, we don't need those thrusters. They did some sniff checks before they put some covers on it.
SpaceX, comm check.
We have you loud and clear in Dragon.
Copy that, Dragon. We have you the same. Welcome aboard the recovery ship. We are working to troubleshoot the forward link transition. Stand by for translation across the deck. I'll let you know when we're ready for that.
Okay, copy.
The crew is preparing for translation. This is where that Dragon nest is going to move the spacecraft towards the deck, and that deck is going to meet the bottom of the Dragon hatch, and that'll enable the crew to egress or exit the Dragon spacecraft onto a platform on the recovery vessel. And again, the recovery crew looks like they may have finished safing the vehicle in preparation for that translation.
As you mentioned, Jesse, that hatch that you see right in the center of the spacecraft, when we see crew egress from that, SpaceX medical personnel will be there to assess crew and assist them along with other ground support crew out of the spacecraft. And at that point, that will be our first time being able to see the AX-4 crew since their liftoff to the International Space Station on June 25th. On a side note, I do love seeing crew go into and come out of the hatch, whether it's the side hatch or whether it is the docking port. I love seeing the smiles on their faces.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for them once we open this Dragon side hatch. Again, it'll be the first breath of fresh air in about 20 days for them since they boarded the Falcon 9 on launch day.
And it is an interesting distinction. You launch in the Atlantic and you splash down the Pacific. It's very different breaths of air that you're getting.
And you traveled all over space for thousands of miles.
288 orbits, something like 7.6 million miles, all just to come down across the country.
Millions of miles, I should say. It's definitely a great passport to have.
It is. Maybe that could be the next memento that we can provide crew before they lift off as a passport that they can see.
I think the locations would be orbits.
That'd be really cool.
Outside of Earth.
Yeah.
Earth orbits, low Earth orbit. Again, next up, we are expecting the translation of the Dragon spacecraft named Grace, named by the Axiom Mission 4 crew. Again, the spacecraft will translate in preparation for hatch opening and exiting of the vehicle.
A few moments ago, Core spoke with the AX-4 crew to let them know that the translation will be happening soon.
Dragon SpaceX, final checks are complete. Translation across the deck to the egress platform will begin shortly. There is a chance that we get a lot of alarms. No concern.
Dragon copies.
And we have movement. Translation is beginning. Some residual ocean water flashing down, and then we are washing down the hatch area. Again, just preparing for the vehicle's side hatch to be opened. Getting some of that salt water off, maybe some of that plasma from reentry off.
Right, all nominal processes to ensure that that crew can safely egress the vehicle, but also that ground personnel are safely protected while handling the spacecraft and crew as well. So at this point, we can see SpaceX personnel positioning themselves to support in this, as well as the spacecraft making final approaches to that upper landing pad for crew to egress the vehicle. After that freshwater washdown of the hatch area, we're seeing some final wipe downs as well. For those with a keen eye as well, you can see on the side of Grace, as it was making its approach towards the upper landing, the Axiom logo proudly displayed on the spacecraft. We had some great shots during the docking footage of SpaceX, Axiom, making a beautiful image of the vehicle docked to the International Space Station. It's a little worn,
Little toasty.
A little toasty.
A little toasty.
All part of nominal ops, though.
3,500 degrees Fahrenheit
That'll
will do that.
Dragon, SpaceX, standby for side hatch opening and egress of some smiling faces.
Here we go.
All right, we're looking forward to it.
They are just about to open that side hatch. And again, first person that'll greet the crew will be the medical officer.
The hatch is open, and ground crews are making first contact with the Axiom 4 crew.
And you see that square-looking tool. That's just a protector for the hatch seal for while the crew egresses. This is a reusable vehicle, so we are protecting both the crew as well as the spacecraft, making sure there's no damage that happens and that the crew doesn't bump their head on anything on the spacecraft. Looks like we're getting, the crew's getting some first photos.
Yeah. That's a good sign that they had good initial comms with medical personnel. So this time we are now just, if you're just joining us, we're waiting for the AX4 crew to egress or exit the Dragon spacecraft, also known as Grace, as part of the conclusion of their more than 20-day mission to the International Space Station.
You can see the crew is handing some of their cargo. That looks like their tablets that they use throughout their mission.
Making it a little easier for crew to make their way out of the spacecraft as well.
Looks like they just removed the footrests. Gives the crew some space to get out of their seats while they are exiting the vehicle.
Now getting some great internal views of the AX4 crew in their
Yes.
spacecraft.
I already saw some big smiles
Yep.
as people, we've all been saying.
As we wait for the AX4 crew to egress the vehicle, you can see ground crew is still putting in aspects of I'm not going to call it rigging, but hardware to help the crew get out of the spacecraft more easily. Reminder that they've been in microgravity for a little over 20 days, and occasionally your first few steps back on Earth can be slightly challenging.
It's a little different in microgravity than dealing with the gravity here on Earth. Just now joining us, we are waiting for the AX4 crew to exit the Dragon spacecraft Grace. Peggy, Shooks, Suave, and Tibor are at the end of their Axiom Mission 4. After 20 days in space, 18 on board the International Space Station. 18 days.
And now this wraps up a very significant portion of the mission, but it's not entirely over. We still have a few medical checks to go. And then in addition to that, the AX4, all the research done on the AX4 mission is all going to be in a world of post-processing, analysis, assessment, and that's all part of it, as well as crew debriefs. So, following after crew egresses, the spacecraft and gets good medical checks, at that point we'll be getting the crew back home and then continuing the final, we'll call it terrestrial-based operations of the
That's
AX4
right.
mission.
I guess it's more of the end of the space-facing portion of
These
the
operational
mission.
phases. Right. We're still going to take our time to get there. You can see ground crews are still working with the crew members and hardware inside. They've established some ground support equipment to help in the aid of the AX4 crew getting out of the spacecraft.
And some of their aids are not too complex. That white platform that you see there is essentially a slide.
Yeah. But an important one.
A very important slide.
But in addition to that slide, we do have, there's a complex tool that you mentioned earlier, Jesse, about protecting the seals. We can see now crew looking to make, the first crew members looking to make their egress from spacecraft along that slide.
Sliding out.
And there she is. We see Commander Peggy Whitson, all smiles, exiting the spacecraft Grace. That is a beautiful sight. Peggy Whitson, the AX4 commander, is home, having logged 695 days in space on 5 flights. She is the 7th on the all-time list for most days in space by a human. It's an incredible feat.
Legendary. So far, we've had Commander Peggy Whitson exit the Dragon spacecraft. We are waiting for the remaining 3 crew members of the AX4 crew. There's no real order to the egress. It's really up to the crew. So we're patiently waiting to see who's up next.
Right. If Peggy is in the indication, which I think she is for this particular crew, we'll see another big smile coming out of the Dragon spacecraft in a moment.
And we've got our pilot, Shubhanshu Shukla, as our second crew member exiting the spacecraft. And some big smiles, as you said. India reached a major milestone for the nation's space exploration goals. AX4 pilot Shubhanshu Shukla became the first astronaut to fly from the country's newly established astronaut corps. His participation marks a vital step forward for ISRO's Gaganyaan program, which aims to send Indian astronauts into space aboard domestically developed spacecraft. Shukla's flight demonstrates India's readiness to execute international missions and reflects the country's broader ambitions to become a key player in the global space community. As India continues to expand its capabilities in crewed spaceflight, this mission serves as both a proving ground and a symbol of its commitment to innovation, collaboration, and leadership in space exploration.
Now, at this time, we are waiting for the mission specialists of the AX4 mission, Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski of Poland and Tibor Kapu of Hungary, to now egress the Dragon spacecraft. We have our third crew member now egressing the vehicle. And there is Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski of Poland. Sław is all smiles for this, which I love to see. Now, Poland's participation in the AX4 mission through the Ignis program marked a pivotal step in the country's growing role in space exploration. Astronaut Sławomir Uznański-Wiśniewski, flying in partnership with the European Space Agency, led a research agenda focused on some of the most pressing challenges in human spaceflight: mental health, artificial intelligence, and radiation monitoring. These areas are critical not only for ensuring astronaut well-being on long-duration missions, but also for enabling safe and sustainable exploration beyond low Earth orbit. The Ignis mission reflects Poland's strategic investment in cutting-edge science and its ambition to contribute meaningfully to the future of deep space travel. It also signals a broader shift in Europe's space landscape, where emerging space nations are taking on increasingly vital roles in shaping the next era of exploration. And based on that smile, I'd say Sław felt like he had a very successful mission.
3 or 4 crew members have exited the Dragon spacecraft. We're now just waiting for the final crew member, Tibor, to exit the spacecraft here. And last but not least, mission specialist Tibor Kapu. Hungary marked a significant milestone in its space ambitions with the AX4 mission as astronaut Tibor Kapu became the first Hungarian to reach the International Space Station, and all smiles from him there. His participation under the banner of the Hunor Hungarian to Orbit program represents Hungary's commitment to advancing its role in international space exploration. This mission signifies the country's return to human spaceflight after decades and highlights its strategic investment in science, technology, and innovation.
And Jesse, it was wonderful seeing Tibor's smiles and waves and high fives. You knew how important this mission was to the crew as they were prepping for it and throughout the mission. And seeing them be able to egress with the same smiles that they went into the capsule with, or into the spacecraft with. Well, at this point, the crew is now safely back home on Earth.
Yeah. Now that our crew are safely back home on Earth and getting the first checks by SpaceX and Axiom space medical teams, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their historic return. 4 lifted off from Launch Complex, from Launch Pad 39A at 2:31 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, June 25th, and arrived at station on Thursday, June 26th. They spent about 20 days in space and 18 of those days on the International Space Station before undocking yesterday. And then this morning at 2:31 a.m. Pacific Time, they splashed down off the coast of San Diego, California. What an amazing journey it's been for them so far.
Yeah, it's been absolutely incredible. And Jesse, it's been fantastic again sharing the desk with you. Thank you so much for joining me on this, and I'm glad we got to spend this time together. But now this cruise entire trip is home, we're ready to move on to the next phase of the mission. So to SpaceX, thank you for an incredible flight and taking such great care.